Welcome to the F5 Podcast. Please like, subscribe, and comment. Today we're going to be talking about anything from remote work all the way up to aliens and the fifth dimension. Stay tuned because this is going to become a very interesting conversation. Is everything black and white?
And shades of gray.
What do you think? Is everything black and white?
I think if you're asking is, and ultimately what I hear is there absolute truth?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Are humans easily capable of finding that truth? No. Which is where I think shades of gray come in. Mm-hmm. Right? So, is there absolute truth? I would contend yes. Humans' capability of understanding it or seeing it, very low. Thus, humility of understanding that would allow us to play in the gray, where we become judgmental or less judgmental of what we think we know or what we think is right and wrong. Mm-hmm. And it's so much pain in this world is caused from assuming we know things that we don't. Mm-hmm. Like, and history is full of it. You just study history, it's like, the fuck were we that dumb? Right. And then you start thinking about it and you're like, what's the chances we're that dumb right now?
Yeah.
Very likely.
Which is why, like, you temper, like, so yeah.
I think unless you're talking about hard sciences, it's really hard to come to absolute truth.
And even the hard sciences.
Yeah, even the hard sciences, yeah.
Whatever the fuck a hard science is. But the biggest issue with the sciences is they've become another religion.
That's true.
Right? And they're limited both in form and function and to the doctrine of the group to the third dimension, which is highly fucking limited.
Right.
Right? And there's an arrogance in that. Oh, if I can't see it, it must not be real. Really? Fuckstick? Walk to me through love then. Oh, it's a biochemical reaction that happens when... Yeah, where did that biochemical reaction come from? Well, it's, get the fuck out of here.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But I think a lot of things fall into a gray area. You can make arguments for either side of whatever, topic you're talking about. It's very hard to find, true black and white in any particular scenario.
With that, though, that is why it is important that we teach people how to think, not what to think.
Right.
And this is like, I say this all the time in all my fucking short form videos because of early engagement with randos. There are always exceptions.
Yeah.
Just assume there are exceptions. That doesn't make the rule inaccurate, right? Just understand there are likely exceptions to everything, which means it's the old saying, right? He who's good with a hammer sees everything as a nail. If you need a black and white world to make sense of life, right. Life is going to be painful. Right. Because you got to figure out the right tool at the right time, the right approach. Right. And in our society, we're having a really hard time with those narratives because we're having a hard time teaching people how to think. We're too obsessed with teaching people what to think. Mm-hmm. Right? And that you're going to cause more error when you do that.
Do you think the people that lash out on TikTok, for example, are people that are taught what to think and then they lash out based on what they've been, indoctrinated with consistently? Oh, man, those people that lash out are like, yeah, billionaires suck, or, billionaires are evil people that want to take advantage of society.
It's hard for me to generalize an entire group of trolls. But I would offer that user 516-53123 with 2 followers and following 1,000 people probably is a bot.
Mm-hmm. There's so many like trolls though. That's a thing. And what have they been indoctrinated to where they have this visceral reaction when somebody says, an insightful thing? Why when you say, billionaires provide value to society, why is there such a visceral reaction, for example, with that? Why when you say, hey, we want people working inside an office as opposed to remote work, there's such a visceral reaction like, hey, we don't want to do that. That's taking advantage of us, or whatever the case may be. Like, and what are your thoughts on, Elon Musk saying that everybody has to come back to work?
It's almost him trying to take back control. That's what I think. Like, if he wants to try to stay in power. It's a really big power play on his part.
Right.
And he's trying to see, or maybe weed out people that he feels that are not necessarily lined up with his values, or like he can fire people on the spot because he's just, they're not agreeing with his or what his take on that is. I think it's just all about control.
Yeah. Well, you were saying something about mission-driven CEOs.
Yeah, you're going to have a real hard time. If you have like a lifestyle business where people are just kind of chill and, hey, we work at our own speed, we do what feels good, and there's a lot of those people out there, then cool. If you're mission-driven, like, hey, we have a purpose, we're moving towards something, fuck off or get on board, you're not playing games. But he's also looking at the fact that China is about to eclipse the United States, and he's looking at what they're doing and looking at what we're doing. And he's like, we can't seem to stop punching ourselves in the face. Meanwhile, China is incredibly nationalistic, incredibly driven by a single vision and wants something different. And we're over here.
We're looking way different than China right now.
Yeah, because we're on the other. China's coming up.
Right.
Coming up is in many ways easier than staying up.
Right.
Because when you're coming up, it's like there is something you're aiming for.
Right.
Superiority.
Yeah, once you're there, it's like...
Once you've been superior, if you will, for a long time, it's like, well, let's find new reasons to fuck off.
Yeah. And plus, the Chinese culture, part of their culture is they focus on the long term consistently. That's part of it, like way more long term than we think. So they're thinking like 100 years down the line, what position are we going to be in? So every action they take, every move they make is based on...
Sounds like a song. Police.
So in 100 years, they're thinking, okay, where are we going to be in 100 years, right? This is like, in the business community, this is well known that Chinese, how you work with them, it's going to first take 5 years to even be at the table just to talk with them. If you're consistent and persistent over a long period of time. And then like they literally have shopping malls, empty shopping malls with nobody going to them because they're like, okay, 10 years down the line, we're going to have this, this, and this. And
there's probably a lot of reasons for that are quite interesting. And you are right. Generally, the East has been better at thinking in terms of hundreds, thousands of years versus quarterly, year out, which there's a long play there that's worth it. But there's a lot of other things that are different. We celebrate individuality massively here.
Yeah.
Individuality is not really a thing to the Chinese. It's like family first.
Some of us celebrate that.
Yeah, that's true. But it's a different agenda, which is different. But getting back to Elon, I think it's interesting that he's kind of a lightning rod right now, and I think there's a lot of people that are either going to rally behind him or be revolt. What's the word I'm looking for?
Repulsed.
Repulsed.
Yeah.
By how he's showing up, but I get it. Like, there's not, depending on what kind of job you're doing, there's a lot of data that says, hey, like, remote work isn't the jam for businesses, right? And over time, we're seeing people. Now, obviously, great employees are going to be great employees, period. But that isn't the masses by any stretch. And you're finding over time, it's like you said, people gaming. I just had this happen. I was coaching somebody who was working for competing companies until one of them finally figured it out, and then he lost both of his jobs. I'm like, well, what the fuck did you think was going to happen?
Yeah.
So he was getting paid because neither one of them knew. Like, oh, I'm working from home.
Oh, right.
Right. There's a lot of that shit that happens. Or, yeah, I'm working, right? Like, no. And then in his case, one of the things he was saying is like, you can no longer hide and say you're not working for Tesla. Right. It was your remote work. And that's what he wanted. He's like, hey, if you're not proud to work here, get the fuck out of here. And I feel him. I get it.
Yeah, he came out to his employees for not only Tesla, but for SpaceX, saying the more superior you are in your occupation here at my company, the more you should be seen. And that doesn't mean you shouldn't work from home, but you are required to work a minimum of 40 hours a week in the office. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, why wouldn't you want to? Why aren't people? And so he said, if you don't show up on Monday, we're going to assume you no longer want the position.
It's pretty badass, to be
I
honest.
still think it is
Yeah.
that power play too, but he will have those people that are going to be in it to win it. Like he's already established his team, his tribe, the people that want to continue to move and push the needle forward. Like he has those people. Again, it's weeding out the ones that are just subpar.
What would be the reason he would just want to do it for a power play? Just for an ego trip?
Well, I don't think in particular for a power play. I was just trying to look up what the official name of it is that they're trying to call. It's another one of the great.
Do you want to speak into the mic?
She has
I
an
know.
Oh, you have a mic.
But basically, employees are refusing to come back into the office.
That's it.
And like knowing that that's something that over time, if you let that sit, it's going to continue to get worse. So he's addressing it now and like really
Yeah.
standing for the change, whereas opposed to like the companies that are like, oh yeah, dear sweet employee, like everything is about you and let's give you what you want, are going to struggle over time with that.
Not over time. He sees what's coming.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
a recession coming, and these people are going to get fucking wrecked. And it's like, oh, okay, you want to play games? Let's see. Check in 12 months from now. Well, it's smart on his part if you're looking at like, hey, how are things unfolding? Like, I want the best of the best. And so I'm going to put a line in the sand that says, hey, either step up or step out. Because we know what's coming.
Yeah.
Right?
Because like you said, great employees are going to be great employees, but there are people that are taking advantage of the system.
It's 80-20
And
rule.
especially his company that is way bigger than what we would know. It's like there's so many people that are sitting at home.
That's easy to hide.
Yeah.
Is that considered a layoff or a resignation? If you draw the line in the sand to say,
That was the
Layoff,
one
probably.
of the debates around why he was doing it, because he was talking about this forthcoming recession that he feels is happening, and he's genuinely concerned about it, and there is good reason to be concerned about it for a number of reasons. And then to draw a line like this is a way in which you could have someone resign without having to lay them off. And the reason to do that is if they resign or they quit, they aren't entitled to severance, and they're not necessarily going to get unemployment. Although right now, in the state of California, it's whatever.
So true.
$21 billion. Rest of the United States mostly got out of unemployment debt because it was being flipped by the federal government. And then Governor Newsom comes on. He's like, oh, we're doing so great here. We have a $20 billion surplus. And then you look under the ledger of debt to the federal government, $21 billion in unemployment debt.
Jesus.
Like, yeah. Well, to give you an idea, you could put all the other states together and they don't equal what California owns in debt. Oh, guess who's going to pay that most likely? Small
Taxpayers.
businesses.
Yeah.
Yeah, small businesses. I remember 2012 to 2017, I think. Every year we'd get an extra bill from the state of California like, hey, this is what you owe to pay back our unemployment that we fucking screwed up. And I'm sure it's going to happen again. Lovely.
Good.
I'm moving. I want to move.
Fuck, I get
Everybody
it.
does.
Smart people do. I'm like, get the fuck out of here. But I don't. I see Elon's move more like a call to action. He's a very driven dude who has a very big vision, and he's not fucking around. So it's like, hey, like, cool. If you don't want to participate, go work for Starbucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who, by the way, is becoming less woke every single fucking minute because they're losing their ass. Where they brought back their founder because they were in such a bad
Howard
way.
Schultz.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He came back in after leaving everything. And they're like, hey, this isn't working. Could you come back in here? And he was like, the Brista experience. Let's start there.
Yeah. So what tends to happen if you give in to people's demands is they ask. It never ends. It's not like you go. Yeah, we're going to give you this, and then it's going to make you happy, and then you're going to be totally satisfied. No, it's like they're going to ask for 10 other things, and then beyond that, they're going to ask for 10 more things.
Yeah.
So it's like, what do you do?
It's a tricky. That's why there's tension, and there needs to be tension. I was talking about this short form video the other day. In the macro, the Democratic Party was supposed to be about social responsibility. The Republican Party was supposed to be about personal responsibility, right?
Right.
And the tension, the truth, going back to the idea of black and white, is in the middle,
Right.
right? Where the Democratic Party goes, hey, like, we need some social construct here. We need some social platforms or safety nets for people.
Right.
right? The Republican Party goes, no, there's personal responsibility here. But now we've created this toxicity of polarity that's causing big problems. And in the middle of that, we're not addressing human nature. Right? Like socialism or communism even, if you had perfect human beings that were 100% enlightened, that had no understanding of separation, would work. Right? Because everybody would show up their best selves, and they would show up ready to contribute to humanity. That's just not the nature of where humans are at. Mm-hmm. We could profess the ideal and wish that we were there, but we will destroy society in the process. Because that isn't how humans are. Humans are more animal than they are anything else. And all they really care about is survival. Survival is, I will do the least amount I possibly can to survive. So yes, if you give people more, they will take more in whole.
I really think that for the most part, whether Democrat or Republican, most people agree on almost everything. If you really like dig deeper, we agree on almost everything. It's the fringes of society that are, that are promoted and spoken about in the media.
You mean the mass of society generally has the same values?
Have the same sentiments for almost everything. Right.
But that's boring, and we couldn't make TV shows and movies out of that. So we're going to take the fringes.
Right. So if you ask like a hardcore staunch Republican, do you believe in social safety nets, welfare, police officers, firefighters, hospitals, welfare if there's, somebody that's in need of it? Most people would agree, yes, for the least of us, we should support even the most staunch far right Republicans.
Yeah.
On the far left, if you look, this can be debated, but on the very far left, if you ask them, hey, if somebody makes a mistake 10 times in a row, do you keep giving them something that you've given them previously that led to them not caring about the mistake? They would say, yeah, just stop what you're doing, stop giving them whatever you're giving them, right? Most people agree on most things. It's just that what's shown in the media is like just these, or what's shown like the Twitter employees, it's the most fringe Twitter employees that are promoted and that, have the most say. And so we're giving into the most fringe of society. And that's really pissing off like the far majority of the people.
It creates so much more drama that way.
Yeah.
That's fun. You're right, though.
It's just weird. It's like people are getting fired. People are for like a mistake. Why we're making like what is it? Mountains out of anthills.
That's one of the characteristics when you hit a certain level of affluence. Mm-hmm. That's what happens, because it's like, well, there's no great war, there's no big conquest, there's no great cause, right? Until we create one, and that might be aliens, that could be multiplanetary. There's some things that'll probably fucking shock the world back to shit. There's something more important than acquiring. But that's what happens when you kind of run out of things to accomplish. Then you start bickering over really silly shit. Like, we have a lot of first world problems that we get to be upset about in our country.
Right. Like, I'm just not a huge staunch believer in body positivity. I'm sorry. Yeah. I just can't. I can't get on board. There's some arguments that can be made about it, but like, I just don't get it. Obviously, yeah. If you feel bad about yourself, you're making yourself feel bad about your body consistently, and there's nothing to feel bad. But there is value in shame. There is value in like, oh, I need to lose a certain amount of weight, and not thinking I'm just perfect the way I am. Like, there is value in saying I'm not perfect. I need to improve. I need to get to a level that, And I was making this. I was talking to I think Julia. He's like there's body positivity for women, but there's not really like bank positivity for men, right? Can I get bank positivity? Like, no matter how negative I am in the bank, bank positivity. No matter how bad negative, it's perfect the way it is.
Well, it's like you can't just sit there and say like there's nothing there, there's no weeds, or like how Tony Robbins says, like you can't just sit there and like convince yourself that everything is fine.
Yeah, there's a problem. Like with the client I have that focuses on cancer, so the increase in the likelihood that you'll get cancer is like something beyond 300% if you're just overweight, not even obese. So if you're just overweight, it's like 300% increase, and then obese is even more. So it's like, why aren't we talking about these things? Like,
there is some embedded assumptions though, right? Like I'm the pretending things aren't a certain way cracks me up.
Right.
And humans love to do this shit, but But there's embedded assumptions in that. 300 times more likely to get cancer. Well, what's the embedded assumption?
That
I don't want to get cancer. I want to live as long as I possibly can.
right.
That's funny to me. Those are like embedded human assumptions. Well, of course you want to live as long as you can. Do you?
It's true.
Right? Well, that's a weird one. Most people are going to have a hard
I
time
had
with that
a-
one alone. Because they're
I-
like, wait, isn't the goal to live as long as you possibly can?
I had a priest
Why?
that did a talk, and he was saying that cancer is a gift because you know when you're gonna pass.
Yeah, that could be.
He said, well, based on like, religious aspect of it, like salvation, he's like, well, you know exactly what you need to do and you know how much time you have. So it's like a gift that you've been given.
I struggle with that one.
Yeah.
I wouldn't see it as a gift at all.
That sounds like a way of putting
I
on
see it-
rosy-colored glasses.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, like you have a certain amount of time to live, but like you're not living at your potential when you have cancer. So there's no gift in that. I think that's different. If you were living at your full fucking potential and you say, oh yeah, I got 2 years, then cool, you get to do everything you can at your fullest. Not when you're in a bed doing chemotherapy, radiation, surgeries. I personally would not be happy if someone told me like, it's a gift. Here's
Oh
the
yeah,
answer.
yeah, that's probably there'd be a lack of social awareness.
Yeah,
but-
no.
And the other way of looking at that is one of the best things you can do, I think, in early life is get really comfortable with the mortality of your meat suit. But just understand,
Yeah.
right? And our current pace. Now,
Me too. I love
I
it.
have a feeling we're going to figure out sooner than later how to tap into the fifth dimension and live at a higher frequency, in which case our bodies will probably live a lot longer or at some point cease to be important in the form that they are now. But in our current state, if nothing changes, there is a timeline, right? There is a countdown for how long this meat suit is going to work before you tap out of it. So getting comfortable with that mortality, so it's like, you're saying like, well, it's a gift because now you know you only have 6 months. To your point, well, fuck, if I knew I only had 6 months, I'd rather have that be completely maximized where my body is at its best. Well, let me help you. We're all in that situation because we all have a countdown, right, in our current state, right? So living from that place is important, but it's more that there's so many embedded assumptions in the human psyche that if you really want to get to design creator and understand what the hell is going on, start poking into those assumptions. Why do we assume these things? Why are they important? Why do we care?
Yeah.
And you can see I see a beautiful design in that. If you were trying to create a species that survived long enough to evolve into a conscious being, then I see why you would embed these kind of programs into it. But they are so core to who we are,
Yeah.
and we don't even realize it.
Based on what I'm seeing in the medical field, I think in 100 years we'll probably reach immortality. And I'm wondering how many, like, what are going to be people's options, like, if they don't want to live, right? Like, are they going to choose immortality versus,
If they don't want to live?
yeah. Yeah, so let's say, like, let's say somebody doesn't want immortality, right? And there's, like, the technology, we're going to have that technology in about 100 years, meaning we're going to all live forever until we want to go. So what are people's options if they're like, I don't want this. I don't want to live 500 years.
I see what you're saying. I was a little confused for a second.
So this is a great conversation, and there's layers to it, but one of the great realizations is that we are eternal. We're just not eternally stuck in a single meat suit.
Thinking about Eternals now, if you watch the movie.
I haven't watched it yet, but
Which one?
I think I need to watch it.
Oh, I haven't seen that yet.
Molly, you need to, if you don't have Gaia, you should use our login
What is Gaia?
and watch what's it called? Ancient
Ancient civilizations.
civilizations, yeah.
Ooh.
But going back to the Bible, Genesis is full of goodness, and that's really quite interesting. But we forget there were two trees in the Garden of Eden: tree of life, tree of good and evil.
Right.
Right, and the serpent, which is all kinds of fascinating if you start to study like serpent throughout history. The serpent deceives Eve, and they become knowledgeable of good and evil. And the statement is, you become like God. God also agreed. They became like us. It is one of the few times in the Bible that God is referred to in the plural. That's all kinds of fun if we want to go play in that space. They became like us. But here's the key to this. They were kicked out of the Garden of Eden because there was another tree in that fucking garden, the tree of life, the tree of eternal life. If they eat of that, while stuck in knowledge of good and evil, they now get stuck in a meat suit in a carnal life. So out of mercy, he boots them out, puts a few cherubim in front of the garden, says, no, 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 you go figure it out.
Builds it.
No.
Right? And that's the mission of mercy. So I think that perhaps in less than 100 years, there are going to be a lot of choices for people to level up. And some will decide to cross over and to level up and operate at a higher dimension. Some will, for various reasons, decide not to and continue that work in the third dimension. But at some point, the transition will happen for all. Whether technology is part of that or not, I think what's more interesting to me is to see how spirituality and technology are coming back together and seeing how those two are going to play together as we're beginning to understand things on a different level. So science kind of was at one point the antithesis of religion, and I would argue is just another religion. And we started using technology to answer a lot of these questions. But if you start to look at art and literature, you're starting to see this theme where science and technology are starting to integrate with spirituality. That's fascinating to me. What are the implications of that? And there's so many topics around this that are. We have so many unexplained mysteries.
I don't see there being an integration between those two amongst scientists, and I think more with religious people, yeah. But with scientists, there's just staunch atheists that don't believe in anything other than what they see in front of them.
Right. And then this really funky discipline within science shows up called quantum physics, and it really just begins to mess with their entire fucking worldview.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's a fun one. That's why I just anyone who wants to go that route with me, I'm like, let's dive into this together, shall we? Turn to chapter 1 of quantum physics, verse 3.
Yeah. Time travel.
Yeah.
All of those things are really interesting.
To me, there is an insane amount of, I'll call arrogance for the time being, to think atheistically about the world and to think in such a black and white world. There's just so many things that if you just stopped and looked, you're like, we can't explain any of this. How the fuck do I have this opinion?
Yeah, like that's true.
The pyramids, for one. We still don't know how they were fucking built. Makes zero sense. And how they're all three aligned.
2.5 million stones that weigh anywhere from 2 to 200 tons.
Yeah.
And they have to be
16,000 slaves.
And they have to be taken from a quarry 100 miles away.
Yeah.
The stones have to be taken from and we
don't even know what they were
developed
used for. And they're not alone. There's these structures all over the world.
Like the Stonehenge.
Stonehenge is another one. But there's pyramids all over the world on 3 different continents and probably more. We just haven't found them yet. We have no idea how they were built or what they fucking were used for. Like, that's hilarious to me. How the hell do we have any opinions of how...
And they're like completely aligned.
History books now say that the slaves built them and they used it for the pharaohs.
There's no explanation. There's no explanation.
We're good to go on that.
You start doing your research, you're like, I know. That didn't work. Sweep that
They'd have to chisel stones in the right way, 100 miles away in a quarry. The stones weigh anywhere from 2 to 200 tons, and they have to. Yeah,
each was at 200 tons.
200. There's stones.
Each blocks.
Anywhere from between 2 and 200 tons.
Wow.
Tons.
That's just the pyramids.
That's just the pyramids.
So here's an interesting thing. Do you notice that there are numbers on tops of buildings?
Yes.
Big numbers.
Yeah.
Why would there be big numbers on tops of buildings?
No,
Aren't they for the helicopters?
Because for things above to see them, right? Stay with me. Okay. Stay with me. Right, that's interesting. If you're on an island and you write SOS,
right.
Who are you writing that for?
Airplanes.
For people above, right?
Yeah.
Okay. The Nezca lines in Peru. Massive, some of them 80-mile structures. I'm not making this up.
I'm just looking up what they look like.
Some of them are monkeys, some of them are men, some of them are geometrical structures. They are massive. Thousands and thousands of years ago.
What are they called?
Nazca lines, the Nazca lines in Peru.
Lines.
Look these up.
Photos.
Astray.
We don't have a.
Oh my god, it's a kitty
No, there's
and a monkey.
there's thousands of them, but we have no idea. Why would you build? This isn't a time when we believe that aviation wasn't even a thing. To look at those pictures and understand it, you have to get those at scale. Some of those are miles long. Help me understand,
spider.
if we had no clue about aviation, why you would be drawing massive things, then how would you even do it?
Right, to be like, a little to the left? No.
Right, like how would you know to proportion? How would you know to proportion and to scale what the hell you were drawing if
That
you
is
had no
so
elevation?
true.
7,000, 12,000 years ago. Let me help
Oh,
you.
those are that old?
Yeah. There's a lot we don't understand. And I think we're about to understand in a big way.
Possible,
There's going to be
yeah.
some massive breakthroughs.
Well, do they say it's kind of like, what
Well,
was called? The
you know-
Crop circles.
crop circles. Did they say that those are one and the
Some type
same? Of
Like-
crop circles?
Yeah, similar. Yeah, but they had 2 weeks ago.
No, I'm way off.
Crop circles are a thing, and that's super interesting in its own conversation. Let's just
Right.
stay on this for a second.
Okay.
We're talking about things that were drawn into the earth, sometimes on the side of mountains that are literally miles large, to scale, that are accurate, like hieroglyphics. But how would you and why would you do that if you had no way to see them?
Yeah.
Well,
That's why I'm saying, like, was it one and the same, but you're saying no, not at all.
Crop circles may be used for their own thing. I'm just trying to make a very simple point here. We see very large letters on tops of buildings. We see things that help planes land, right? And we look at it, we obviously know, oh, that is to help planes land or to communicate with
Yeah.
planes above.
Right.
We have things that are massive in the middle of the desert that have been there for thousands of years, right? At a time when we didn't think aviation was even a thing. I think we have a lot to understand that we don't. Who are they communicating with? What the hell? Why would you draw
And
these?
why like a cat, you know, or like
And
a
monkey,
spider?
yeah. I have a lot of questions. Evidently, they align with the stars, which is fascinating.
Oh.
Pyramids align with the North Star.
Talk to the gods.
Or a landing pad, navigating them down. I don't know, but
Who?
Well, you know, like 2 weeks ago, Congress had a discussion on
Oh,
UFOs.
yeah.
What?
yeah.
Congress
essentially,
Podcast.
if you catch the
Congress had a hearing on UFOs and started releasing like footage of UFOs that the military.
That's why I'm
yeah,
bringing it up
the
again.
punchline, yeah, we know about them.
So what?
Tell
Next.
us more.
Monkeypox.
Yeah,
Monkeypox.
they're real. Oh, really?
Cats and fields, obviously.
Well, there's an argument that can be made. Like in the last 50 years, we've had more technological advancements in the last 5,000 years combined.
Nah, dude, we're so far.
In the last 50 years. So how are we making
We're
all
doing
these
things
advancements?
ass backwards. Oh, I see where you're going with that.
Yeah. How are we making major advancements? 5,000 years, more than 5,000 years worth of advancements in 50 years. Do we have some type of alien technology that we're learning from? I don't know. Like something to be talked about.
I think humans are getting primed for a very big reveal of sorts.
Yeah.
What did you say?
Independence Day. No.
But,
Honesty is real.
and obviously, I think when you think of aliens, it very much depends on what you mean by. I think when we think aliens, we get the Hollywood version, right?
Yeah.
But there's lots of different ways. If you understand the multiverse or parallel universes or the theory of relativity, it literally could just be a future version of you coming back to help your sorry ass out.
I'm
But-
okay with that.
There could be something more even like crazy than the theory of relativity out there that we're just unfamiliar with.
Right.
Like,
But this is like this for me is why when we start going back to your question about black and white, when somebody draws a line in the sand and says, "No, I'm an atheist," I'm like, there has to be trauma. Only trauma.
yeah.
Only trauma leads somebody to believe that, like, I'm going to draw a line in the sand and I'm going to defend the fact that no God exists.
The only thing I think, the only position that's defensible, I believe, is agnosticism.
Well, it's the
Yeah.
easy way out for fucking
Which is
sure.
which I don't know the answer. Yeah, I don't know the answer.
Not fall into that category. Like, how can you make a definitive statement about anything? Because you don't know,
It's fake.
you know?
You can make logical conclusions. You can make logical conclusions. You can make logical conclusions. Like
What's your logical conclusion?
you can make inferences. You can say, okay, for example, if you have a watch with its enormous, like the enormous complexities, there has to be some type of maker with that watch. And if you look at the universe, there's like infinite complexities that make no sense whatsoever. And if there were like just a few things off, then the whole world wouldn't exist. And like,
It's almost as if it was
and so
designed.
I think like in science, the impossibility is like 1 times 10 to the 26th or something like that.
Yeah.
And literally for the world to exist, it would have to be like 1 times or 1 to the like 1,000th or something like that. So it's like impossible for all this to happen. So it's like you have to like
There's
at some
literally
point,
better mathematical odds. If you're just like, I'll address people in the logical world. Like, it's literally a better mathematical odds that this world was created than it was an accident. So how the fuck does anybody with half a logical mind go, I'll go with the latter?
it looks like it looks
all
like
an
everything was intelligently designed. Like how do we like without any type of external energy source, how are we running? Like how are our internal organs working consistently without how is it working? How like, nobody can explain this. What's causing them to have this energy?
Yes.
Incorrectly about the definition of agnostic, but what I mean more of is how can you definitively say like there is only one God, or there are this many gods, or there is this, like you don't know, you haven't been there, you don't have
You have to make a leap of
the
faith.
knowledge or the doubt.
Yeah.
Well, and that's where things are weird. Like how definitive is this leap of faith?
Of course, and you have to do the same thing in science too. You have to make a leap of faith on a lot of things.
Well, it's like science is a very useful way to help understand the first 3 dimensions, but it's a religion just like all the others, and more now than ever.
Yeah.
How often do we well, we used to believe this 5 years ago, but we no longer believe this. Which the credit I would give to science, at least it's willing to continually evolve.
If you
its
said
belief system.
anything that was a diversion of heliocentrism
Oh, I know.
1,000 years
I
ago,
know.
you were put
literally-
to death.
Or at least thrown into house arrest, as Copernicus and Galileo were.
Yeah, exactly. So Galileo, he was the one saying, I don't think we all like everything revolves around the sun. I think, everything revolves around the earth, right? So the sun and every other planet revolves around the earth. I think we revolve around the sun. And he was literally put in jail. Like,
Correct.
What the?
Thrown under house arrest. Yeah, that was because the Catholic Church had a little bit too much power, which is why science became the antithesis to religion, because religion got so far off its rocker and was used. Does this sound familiar? It was used by the government to impose power to drive behavior. Oh, wait, that doesn't happen in science, though. Does that happen?
Doesn't
in science?
happen today at all.
And with science, no.
Yeah.
Right, where things just start to not make sense, and you're manipulating things to make it be what you want them to be.
Yeah. Yeah. There's some facts in science, obviously.
Of course.
Yeah.
There's some facts
so
in
there's
religion.
indisputable facts in science.
Yeah, they're different modalities to get to truth.
Right. There's historical facts in Christianity and all the other religions.
All the others, but a lot of them.
Yeah, you have not historians that were not theistic historians, Tacitus and Josephus, that acknowledged Jesus and all those things that happened.
Yep, Josephus is responsible for a good portion of early church history, and he wasn't
Yeah.
a follower.
Here's a fun fact: time travel's a fact. It's possible. Time travel.
Yeah, Einstein exposed this. We just
Yeah.
trying to figure out how to make it happen.
Yeah. So the one test I use to see if somebody understands physics or not is time travel possible? Traveling in the past is impossible as of now. We don't know that, but future time travel is already happening.
How? Explain. Why is it impossible to go back but not forward?
It's possible to go forward because the theory of relativity states that you can bend time and space, and when you bend time and space through speed or gravity or some type of mass object, you can actually travel in the future. It's very hard to explain, but there, if you look at satellites in space, some of them are delayed by 0.006 seconds because they're traveling fast enough in a warped time space that it's traveling in the future, and so there needs to be a little bit of a delay so that we on Earth see the time difference. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
So there's satellites that are actually
shooting
traveling in the
stars.
future, and they're delayed by 0.006 seconds. So if we can travel at light speed, then we for sure can travel in the future by multiple time frames. If that makes sense. I don't know if I did the best explanation. Yeah.
We figured
Muscle
out we can that the speed of light speeds up and slows down, which is where this comes from. And so once you realize it's a variable, then you can begin to manipulate it.
No.
And when you're out in orbit, you're moving much quicker.
So you would have to be in space for this to occur.
So you would have to be in space that.
Or you create a wormhole and step through it.
So any change in time or space can affect time travel. So that's the theory of relativity, essentially. So if you change space in some way through a black hole,
Oh,
You
example.
bend the 3 dimensions
Together.
and then punch a hole through them.
so what affects time? Speed affects time, right? So it's fucking hard to explain. If you imagine
Speed.
A whiteboard. Drive around.
I don't want to give the wrong explanation. Have a bunch of physicists be like, "You're a dumbass." Imagine a train say you're watching a train.
Okay.
Right, travel. Say you're watching a train. So
Shoot the shit with that. Turn off your phone, please.
all right. So imagine you're watching a train, right? And am I going to explain this right? Okay, so if you see a ball that's going in a triangular direction, it's dropping down and then it's going at an angle
And then
in a
sideways.
triangle way.
Okay.
Right? Well, the faster you go, the more the ball travels in a triangle, right? So if you're if you're looking at this, right, and the ball's going like this, if this is traveling faster, right, this takes more space.
Got it.
If that makes sense.
Oh, got it.
Right?
Got it.
So if you travel even faster, then this ball
Got
takes
it.
more of the train. That makes sense. The total length of the train.
And
So that's how.
By his example of just going through all 3. Is that what you're with the triangle?
You're elongating or
this way?
speed.
So you're elongating the amount of space that the ball takes of the train.
Got it.
That makes sense. So the train's going faster. Okay, so if the train's just going 1 mile an hour, right? Just going like this, you're gonna see a slower progression.
Got it.
right? But if the train's going like this, like that, and all of a sudden you have the same speed of the ball, then it takes more of the train.
Okay.
So that's how we relate it to time.
Got it.
Essentially, the more we can change speed of space or change space, it's either speed or space, right? Or time or space.
Time-space continuum.
Yeah. We either change time or space, and if we do one of those two things, then we can travel in the future. And we are traveling in the future based on satellites that are in the air. That even military operations, if you're going up a mountain, there's a time differential that you have to equate for. And this is a fact. There's things on the planet that are traveling in the future, right?
Okay, I completely get it now.
There's things, yeah. So the satellites and so there's different space within
That's why you can't go backwards. You
Right.
can only go forwards.
you can't go backwards, but
It's
you
not
can
like
go
the movies.
forwards. Yeah.
Got
So at some point, I think in the future, we're going to have something fast enough that's going to be able to enable us to travel in the future.
Like a train.
Yeah.
But then would you just be going around Earth? Like I'm still trying to understand, like, because I understand the short term, like going in the future. I understand that piece, but like years, decades, centuries.
Yeah, so what he's explaining is still largely theoretical as to how we can apply it, but the fact that
Got it.
it's off by a fraction tells us that it is at least possible, right? Because time is, even if it's
Well,
such a
I would argue it's not theoretical at this point.
theoretical. Well, what her question about like what are the implications, like where we could go with it is like,
Yeah.
well, we don't really know, but we can show that we can speed up time and slow it down.
Yeah.
Which tells us that it can happen. How exactly we utilize technology to do that?
What's the movie with
Back to the Future.
Matthew McConaughey? There's
Yeah.
a movie. What is it called?
Interstellar.
Interstellar.
Oh, I haven't.
That explains.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Interstellar explains
hands.
everything completely.
Shakes his own hand.
It's a pretty good movie. Yeah. He shakes his own hand. Yeah.
So the problem with like time travel or space travel, this is the biggest problem is that if you travel far enough, when you come back to Earth, it's going to be a completely different time. That's one of the problems of time travel, of space travel. So
Well, that's what these are the things we don't
No.
know because what is age? What
Oh,
is
maybe.
age? What is age based on? Like what is time?
Exactly. Like,
no, technically you don't age.
that's what I'm
You just you
Well,
maintain the same like you age at the same rate. When you come back to Earth, everybody's aged more.
This is largely the theoretical part. We really don't understand what
It's
the
not
nature of-
theoretical. It's not theoretical. If you travel fast enough and you travel in a space that has different amounts of density
Let me
and things like
explain
that.
to you why it's theoretical. Have we done it?
No.
In movies,
Or
yes.
maybe we don't know.
in movies, yes.
Well, no,
absolutely.
but you have to understand that when we're planning to travel to Mars, this is what they plan for. It's like
Oh, I
when
know.
when you come back to Earth, we're gonna be there's gonna be like a difference of like maybe like 6 months or something like that. They plan for this in
And then
NASA.
we may learn something new, and we may figure out that isn't the case. It's the same reason the first rovers they dropped on the moon had massive snowshoes on them.
Who?
True story. Big discs.
The
The
rovers.
that we landed on the moon because we assumed based on how old we thought the moon was and its relationship to the Earth that it was like 10 feet of space dust. And then we got there and it was like a half an inch of space dust, which changed our entire view of how old we thought the moon was. But it's like we do the best we can with what we got, right? But until we like actually get into that world, I don't know that we actually know what aging is going to be like. Because what is aging? Right? Our idea of time is really anchored to the idea of the sun, which is all kinds of fascinating on a whole other kind of level, right? So
Right.
that's just a physical dimension, a property that is in the first three dimensions. My guess is long before technology teaches us
Right.
how to do that, we're just going to figure out how to jump dimensions, in which case this is all fairly irrelevant. How do we know this is possible? Well, there's many accounts of people doing this, including Jesus. Jesus walked through walls. He appeared in different parts of the world in a very short amount of time. Why? Because he knew how to operate through many dimensions. And even in the story of Christ, when many of his disciples wanted to touch him, he said, "Please don't touch me. I haven't ascended to the Father yet." He was operating at a level of vibrancy that if they touched him, could compromise themselves because they weren't cleansed yet, if you will. Cleansed is probably not the right word.
So Jeff Bezos talked about this. He was like, I wanted to become a theoretical physicist, and he's like, I wasn't smart enough because like there's different levels to it. Like
So
you have
is that
to
like-
to be an accomplished theoretical physicist, you have to actually be in like the top 0.000% of IQ.
And then when you become a theoretical physicist, you end up shitting on all the disciplines of science because there's questions there that like cannot be answered, which is fun.
The M theory in metaphysics is a theory that there's 8 dimensions. Eight
we know of
dimensions.
11 so far.
11.
11
Okay.
so far with a
So
theory that
you
there's an
can't
infinite amount
you
of
can't
dimensions.
objectively see this, but you can mathematically prove that there's
Understand it.
11 dimensions.
Yep.
Right. So everything in this universe is made up of mathematical equations essentially. That's how we make sense of physics,
It's almost as if
chemistry,
there was like an
everything.
intelligent design to the whole thing.
I know, but like so theoretical physicists have gotten to a point where they've made it mathematically feasible that there's 11 dimensions through mathematical equations and things like that make the universe make more sense than 3 dimensions. Like literally mathematically, 3 dimensions does not equate to anything. It doesn't make any sense.
Explain a lot if we only operate in 3 dimensions.
If we only operate in 3 dimensions, there's like an infinite amount of things that we cannot explain at all. We have zero explanation as to why they occur. But with 11 dimensions, everything seems to make sense.
It's a lot of dimensions.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, no.
I don't know how they come to that conclusion, but this is like well known amongst theoretical physicists. It's
100%.
Like M theory.
Well, think about it. Every dimension is superior to the last. So you got one dimension. If you're on one dimension, you get a single plane. 2 dimensions, you get all of the plane and its depth. 3 dimensions, you get depth, width, and length.
I'd love to have
one is superior to the next, meaning you see all of it plus all of the others. 4th dimension, you would be able to see all of it plus all of the others. If you're in 2nd dimension, you can't see 3rd dimension. It's literally invisible to you.
I would love to have a theoretical
Wait.
physicist.
You guys just get what I said?
No, say it again.
If you're in 2nd dimension, you can't see 3rd dimension. It is literally invisible to you. If you
Oh,
are
so
in
if you don't-
4th dimension, you see all of the first 3 plus the one you're in.
But not 5th, 6th, 7th.
That's how you walk through walls. That's how there's beings that communicate with people that they can't see.
How do we see these dimensions then?
It's vibrant. It's all vibration.
Do you think heaven's on
Frequency.
Earth?
Yes. We're
So
bringing
like,
it.
yeah. So like everyone that passes away is actually with us still, but
Yes, in another dimension. We get rid of the meat suit. And it's not necessary to get rid of the meat suit. If you follow the Bible, like
yeah.
John the Baptist shows up on the scene. What's the first thing they fucking ask him? This cracks me up when Christians have a hard time with reincarnation. I'm like, you all read your Bible ever? Anybody? No? Pastor just told you this shit? First thing, he shows up. First thing they literally ask him, are you Elijah? First question out of their mouth. Now, why the hell would you ask him if he was Elijah, a prophet that was 600 years ago, if you didn't believe in reincarnation or some version of this? Right? Like, that's a fascinating one to me. Like, literally, first he's like, no, I'm not Elijah. And then they asked him again later on. He's like, listen, I'm not Elijah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right? And the Mount
Yeah.
of Transfiguration, when Christ goes to the top of the mountain.
Transconfiguration, yeah.
Transfiguration. The mountain. Goes up to the top. He's hanging out. Who shows up? Moses and
I'll look that
Elijah.
up
It's
really
almost
quick.
as if God was like, now I'm really fucking with you.
I gotta. Can,
Let's land it.